She's a slithery little snake. I'm a little sick, but this is still tools of the trade. The passive. Now normally, characters move slow when they strafe side to side, and even slower if they're moving backwards. That slow when you strafe or move backwards is decreased a little bit when you're playing as Medusa. Makes you very good, very potent at boxing. Little slithery snake you are. You move in, you take a shot, you slide out. This passive is very strong in the initial phases of the game when you and the enemy hunter are going to be boxing it out with just your auto attacks. You can slip and slide in a lot easier, you can move out of the way. Be careful, you could probably throw your face into some more shots than you intend until you get the hang of this, and then later it's useful for positioning in the late game, moving side to side, strafing inside your own team, trying to get a better position for any upcoming fights. And since you have no movement penalty when strafing side to side, you can get a better look around angles and such. First ability, your next few shots get an attack speed steroid, and after hitting a target, do poison damage over time. Simple yet effective. Increase your damage output for a short amount of time. It's not your basic attacks that hit harder, it's the poison afterwards that does the extra damage. You can spam all 3 shots into the same target. Maybe they die instantly, maybe they die after a short amount of time, but you do want it primarily going into the same target. You lose value the more you spread this out, and it can be blocked, so you could end up just killing a minion. And word of caution, it does play a very unique sound whenever you turn this steroid on, so if you know you're going into a fight and you want to be stealthy, use this before you get within earshot. The one has high burst potential, so if you use this properly throughout the game, you're going to condition the enemy to be aware for when this goes off. And once they're conditioned, you can use that to your advantage. If enemies are slowly approaching you or your teammates, you use your steroid, the sound plays, and suddenly, ooh, back away slow, it's poisonous. But I do want to emphasize how high single target damage this is, and defensively it's not the best option. If one person alone is approaching you, then sure. But if you fire off these shots into multiple people, they're just not going to be doing that much damage overall. And in the early game, if you're looking to use this, you have to be aware that there are no minions in the way. So what you can do early during laning phase is take a shot or two into them, because they'll be standing outside of the wave, hopefully, and then coax them into the wave for protection. Your next shot won't be able to go through minions, but you set them up for your second ability, which is a line attack that does damage upon the first enemy hit and then does damage in a cone behind that first target. It can't be stopped by enemies, only walls and such. There's no crowd control on it, it's just damage, it's nothing fancy. Again, as far as defense goes, it's not the best ability, but it emphasizes that high burst potential, and nothing screams high single target damage burst more than a dash that stops on the first enemy got hit. That's the third ability. It also has a small root effect and does some anti-heal too, but you have to throw your body into the enemy. As far as defense goes, it is definitely not one of the better abilities, because you have to use this kind of early, or you risk the enemy positioning themselves in a way so that if you try to get away, you accidentally bite down on them and cut yourself off short. Now you're stuck, now you're dead. On the side of rush down aggression, however, this is an amazing ability. It goes through minions, the bite itself does damage, your next shot is going to be instant after the bite, so in the laning phase it adds to that scenario we were talking about. How you take a few shots of your first ability, you coax them into the wave, and you can either use your 2, splashes through everything, or dive through the minions and get another shot off into them. And as they try to position themselves around the minions, because that's normally what you do when you're fighting as a hunter, you try to get the minions in between you and the other hunter's auto attacks. You use your 2, if you used your 3 first, it goes through everything, that's a viable option, or if you used your 2 first, then you can use your 3, you make direct contact. If you bite them, there will be nothing between you and the enemy. And if they're still moving a little bit, you're not sure if they're fully dead, you can check their pulse with your ultimate. That should do it. They should be properly dead afterwards. And for the ultimate, Medusa winds up and does a massive amount of damage in a cone. Enemies facing Medusa during the ultimate take the full force of the damage and get stunned. Enemies facing away from her take slightly less damage and get slowed. Any enemy gods that die in the ultimate are going to be turned into a statue. You can block a few shots with it. It's rare that you're going to end up actually using it. You can splash your 2 off of it as well. It will break after a few shots or after you use your 2. And she is crowd control immune while using this ultimate. It cannot be blocked by enemies, only objects. And if it wasn't for this ability, Medusa would have no defensive options whatsoever. You are by all accounts going to have to play with a snake-like mentality. Normally in the laning phase as a hunter, you're going to push the enemy back with your abilities, your auto attacks, and your movements. You don't walk directly towards them, that's how you take damage to the face, and it's somewhat obvious. But with the Medusa passive, you take better steps, you take better shots, you are slowly going to walk them into their tower. The enemy is going to have to turn around and walk themselves properly back, or you end up with a Medusa a lot closer than she really should be. The same applies when you're relieving pressure in your lane, when you're giving some space up because you don't feel too comfortable. Turning around and heading back is an obvious sign of retreat. You do this seamless little slither, where if they try to push you back, you're not in the biggest of haste to try and get away. If you do this properly while you're trading damage in the lane, it'll always feel to the enemy as if you are just out of range. So get out there, go to a herpetology exhibit, and become the snake you were meant to be.